Forest mysteries. Liam hesitated at the edge of the backyard, his gaze fixed on the narrow, winding trail that cut through the dense trees ahead. The late afternoon sky was cloaked in heavy clouds, casting a subdued gray pallor over everything. The scent of damp earth and fallen leaves filled the air, while a gentle breeze stirred the branches, whispering secrets that only the ancient woods seemed to understand. His fingers gripped the straps of his backpack with a nervous tension, the familiar weight anchoring him amid the flutter of uncertainty in his stomach. Behind him, the house stood silent, shadows creeping along the walls as dusk settled. His parents' voices had faded hours ago, swallowed by the static hum of the television or the oppressive silence that had fallen over the household. The impulse to escape had erupted suddenly, an urge to find a space where he could breathe freely, away from the tension and conflicts that had been mounting all day. He took a cautious step forward, then another, his boots crunching softly on the gravel as he moved onto the dirt trail. The forest loomed ahead, thick, quiet, almost expectant, offering a refuge from the chaos he'd left behind. His heartbeat was uneven, pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. He was aware that the woods could be unpredictable, filled with hidden dangers and unfamiliar sounds, but that only fueled his sense of adventure. A strange, exhilarating sense of liberation washed over him, mingling with a lingering apprehension. The canopy thickened rapidly, leaves filtering the fading light into mottled patches that danced on the ground. Shadows stretched longer, curling around the trunks and forming dark pockets that seemed to breathe with life. Liam's eyes darted nervously from shadow to shadow, every rustle of leaves making him start. He paused briefly, instinctively reaching into his pocket for a small flashlight. The cool metal felt reassuring against his palm, but he hesitated to turn it on. No need to draw attention. The forest silence was profound, broken only by the faint crackle of twigs underfoot and the distant call of a bird, uncertain if it was a warning or just passing through. Liam's pulse slowed, trying to steady itself. The woods had an ancient, almost hypnotic rhythm, a pulse that seemed to mirror his own heartbeat. He wondered what he was seeking: solace, clarity, or simply a moment to feel alive without the weight of home pressing down. Deeper into the woods, the trees grew taller, their branches intertwining into a tangled canopy that blocked out most of the remaining light. Shadows deepened into almost black patches, and the air grew cooler, carrying the scent of moss and decay. His steps slowed, and he cast a cautious glance around, feeling increasingly small amid the vast, whispering forest. Somewhere ahead, the trail curved out of sight, hinting at unknown secrets waiting to be uncovered. He pressed his back against a rough bark tree, breathing unevenly as his ears strained for any sound beyond his own pulse. The silence was almost oppressive, yet strangely comforting. It felt as if the forest was holding its breath, waiting for what he wasn't sure. But a flicker of curiosity ignited within him, stronger than the fear that had initially gripped him. Pulling his hoodie tighter around his shoulders, Liam reached into his pack and pulled out an energy bar. Nothing special, but enough to stave off hunger and give him a moment to collect himself. He chewed slowly, eyes scanning the shadows for movement or anything out of place. Nothing appeared, only the endless rows of trees, their silent watchfulness unchanging. Suddenly, a rustling sound behind him made him tense. His head whipped around, hands instinctively tightening on the strap of his pack. A small animal darted out from a bush, probably a squirrel, its tail flicking as it scurried across the trail. Liam exhaled, feeling a flicker of relief. The woods weren't as threatening as he'd feared. They were alive, yes, but not hostile, just indifferent. He hesitated briefly, then took another tentative step forward. The trail was faint now, more suggestion than a defined path, but he pressed on, driven by a mixture of curiosity and a need to prove something to himself. His thoughts flickered with images of the house, of the tension he'd escaped, and he wondered how long he could stay out here before someone started looking for him. As he moved further, the light dimmed further, shadows deepening into velvety black that seemed to swallow the remaining gray. Every sound was amplified. The faint snap of twigs, the distant whisper of wind through leaves, the brush of branches against each other. His steps became more deliberate, every movement cautious. The forest was alive, unpredictable, and he was painfully aware of how fragile his control was in this vast, ancient realm. A sudden gust of wind caused the treetops to sway, casting fleeting patterns of shadow and light across the ground. Liam shivered, not from cold, but from the strange thrill of being alone in such a vast, uncharted place. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the silence seep into him, feeling the rough bark of a nearby tree beneath his fingertips. Just as he was about to turn back, a faint, rhythmic sound caught his attention, almost like breathing, steady and deliberate. His eyes snapped open. The noise was coming from deeper within the woods, beyond his line of sight. For a moment, he hesitated, torn between retreat and curiosity. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. He leaned forward, listening more intently, heart pounding in his chest. The rhythmic sound persisted, growing slightly louder, more distinct. It wasn't the wind or animals. It felt unnatural, almost mechanical, yet faint and distant. Liam's grip on his backpack tightened. Was it a sign of something nearby? Or just his imagination playing tricks? A sudden movement caught his eye, something flickering at the edge of his perception, shifting just beyond reach. His instincts urged him to retreat, but his curiosity pushed him forward. Every nerve in his body was alert, every sense heightened. The woods seemed alive with unseen eyes, waiting silently. He took a hesitant step, then another, every footfall deliberate. The rhythmic sound continued, echoing softly through the trees, as if guiding him or warning him. Liam's mind raced. Was it a person, an animal, or something else entirely? The uncertainty sharpened his focus, sharpening his resolve. He was no longer just wandering aimlessly. He was searching for answers. The shadows grew darker, merging into a deep velvet black that seemed to swallow the faint glow of the sky. Every sound was magnified. The whisper of leaves, the distant murmur of wind, the faint crackle of twigs beneath his feet. His breathing grew steadier, more controlled, as he moved cautiously, determined to uncover what lay ahead. Then, out of the darkness, a faint glow appeared, just a flicker, like a distant lantern or reflection. Liam's eyes widened. It was close now, and he could feel the subtle shift in the air, a change that hinted at something beyond mere nature. His pulse quickened, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Whatever this was, it was real, and it was waiting. He paused, listening intently, heart pounding in his ears. The rhythmic sound had stopped, replaced by a tense silence. Then, from the shadows, a faint figure emerged, not threatening, but unfamiliar. It moved with purpose, silent and deliberate, heading toward the glow. Liam's grip tightened on his backpack, instinctively ready to react. He realized he was no longer just an observer. He was part of this unfolding mystery. A new understanding settled within him. This forest was not just a refuge, but a place of secrets waiting to be uncovered. And whatever lay ahead, he knew his journey had only just begun. The darkness no longer felt like an obstacle, but an invitation to discover what truly lurked beneath the canopy. Liam hesitated at the forest's edge, the last rays of daylight swallowed by thick, rolling clouds. His damp coat clung coldly to his skin as he steadied himself, eyes scanning the tangled darkness ahead. The ground beneath him was slick with rain, roots and stones threatening to betray his cautious steps. Shadows stretched jagged across the trail, merging with the encroaching gloom that seeped deeper into the woods. The air was thick with the scent of wet leaves and damp earth, punctuated by distant, faint calls, perhaps a bird, perhaps something else entirely. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. The fading outline of the familiar world behind him felt distant, almost unreal, silent, oppressive, like a cage closing in. His chest tightened, and he drew a sharp breath, feeling the wind whip through the trees, carrying whispers of unspoken fears. The rain blurred his vision, each drop a cold reminder of how far he'd come. Doubt gnawed at him, a persistent ache that refused to fade. Why am I here? He wondered, teeth clenched against the chill. Maybe it's madness, or maybe hope. The faint hope that something better waits beyond this darkness had driven him forward. His gaze flicked nervously around the shifting silhouettes, searching for reassurance. Nothing was certain. Only the weight of uncertainty pressed down, heavy and unrelenting. Suddenly, a rustle nearby froze him in place. His body stiffened, every nerve alert. The sound was quick, a branch snapping, or perhaps a small creature scurrying through the underbrush. His breath hitched, ears straining to catch any further noise. The woods responded with a chorus of faint cracks and murmurs, twigs breaking under weight, water flowing somewhere deeper within. But that one sound, sharp and deliberate, lingered in the air. He clenched his fists, fighting the trembling that threatened to overtake him. Maybe it was just the forest's natural noise, nothing more. Or perhaps something else lurked in the shadows, watching. A shiver ran down his spine, but he forced himself to move. Each step was tentative, cautious, as if unseen eyes might reach out and pull him into the darkness. The drizzle intensified, droplets stinging his face and blurring his vision further. He blinked rapidly, trying to clear his sight, but the rain only deepened the shadows, making everything seem more elusive. The wind picked up again, howling softly through the trees, causing branches to sway and leaves to whisper secrets. Liam's ears strained for any additional sounds. Then a faint, irregular crackling, closer now, set his nerves on edge. His eyes darted around, wide and alert. Then a sudden, unmistakable noise, a soft, hurried shuffle just beyond a cluster of dense bushes. It was small, but urgent, like something trying to hide or escape. His breath caught, and he froze, ears tuned to the slightest movement. The forest seemed to hold its breath, thickening with anticipation. He hesitated, muscles tense, mind racing. What was that? An animal? Something more sinister? A flicker of primal fear mixed with curiosity. His palms grew clammy despite the cold. Carefully, he moved toward the bushes, trying not to make a sound. The rain muffled most noises, but the faint scrape of claws or paws against damp earth was unmistakable. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he approached the dark foliage. Every instinct screamed for him to retreat, to run, to escape the unknown. But something compelled him to stay, to confront whatever was hiding in the shadows. His hand hovered near a branch, hesitating before pushing aside wet leaves. A gust of wind sent a spray of cold droplets into his face, stinging his cheeks. He squinted into the gloom, eyes searching for movement. Suddenly, a deep growl shattered the silence, a guttural, rumbling sound that vibrated through the trees and settled heavily in the air. Liam's stomach clenched. The noise was close now, frighteningly so. His mind flashed with stories of predators, of the wild beasts his father had warned him about, creatures lurking unseen, waiting for the right moment. He instinctively took a step back, heart pounding fiercely. The growl came again, louder and more menacing, and through the shadows, he saw two glowing eyes reflecting faint light filtering through the canopy. The creature was massive, silent, watching him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Its gaze was unblinking, assessing. Liam's breath hitched, but he refused to panic. His legs felt unsteady, but he kept his stance firm. The creature didn't move. Only its luminous eyes remained fixed on him, as if weighing his worth. For a moment, doubt clouded his mind. Was this real, or was his fear distorting his perception? Then the eyes blinked slowly, and the growl softened into a low warning. A decision pressed upon him: confront the beast or retreat into the shadows, risking further danger. His fists clenched, trembling but resolute. He knew he couldn't turn back now, not when he was so close to uncovering the truth behind his forest secrets. Slowly, he backed away, eyes never leaving the creature. The glow faded as the animal melted into the darkness, leaving only the echo of its warning. Liam exhaled, trying to steady his racing pulse. The woods seemed to exhale with him, the oppressive tension easing just enough to allow clarity. But the feeling of being watched persisted, prickling his skin. Every sound now seemed sharper, every rustle more deliberate. He realized he was no longer wandering aimlessly. Something else was here with him, something that had made its presence known. The encounter had shifted his understanding. This forest was no longer just a place of mystery, but one of imminent danger. As he moved further away from the bushes, the rain continued to fall, blurring his vision and muffling the world. His steps grew more confident, yet his senses remained heightened. Whatever lay ahead, he knew he couldn't ignore the forest's silent warnings anymore. The darkness was alive, and now he was part of it. In that moment, Liam gained a new understanding. This forest was not just a place to seek answers, but a living entity that tested those who dared to enter. The creature's appearance had revealed a hidden threat, but also a clue. The forest was watching him, and he had to decide whether to continue seeking the truth or to retreat and wait for a safer moment. His awareness deepened, and with it, a resolve to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that he was no longer alone in these shadows. Liam froze as shadows stretched ominously across the forest floor. the silence pressing in with an almost suffocating weight. The faint rustling of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures seemed to halt, as if the entire woods held their breath, awaiting what might unfold. His eyes darted through the darkness, searching desperately for movement, for any sign of the flickering glow that had pierced the night moments earlier. The cool air was thick with moisture, causing a prickling sensation on his skin, but he remained perfectly still, heart pounding in a cautious rhythm. The moon's silvery light filtered through the canopy, casting irregular patches on the ground, while the shadows beneath the trees elongated like grasping fingers reaching into the clearing. Liam's breath was shallow, each inhalation deliberate to avoid betraying his position. His fingers clenched tightly around a rough, fallen branch, an improvised weapon or perhaps a talisman of reassurance in this unfamiliar terrain. Every sound seemed exaggerated. The snap of a twig, the whisper of wind slipping through leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, each one sharpening his senses. Suddenly, a pair of piercing eyes materialized in the darkness, glowing with an unnatural luminance. They fixated on him, unmoving, unblinking, as if probing his soul. Liam's pulse quickened, but he fought to maintain composure, grounding himself in a tense stillness. His muscles tensed, yet he kept his stance relaxed, trying to appear non-threatening. The eyes lingered there, as if weighing him before slowly shifting. A tall, broad figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the faint moonlight with measured caution. The creature was cloaked in a thick coat of fur that shimmered faintly under the dim glow. Its coloration was a mottled blend of grays and browns, with darker patches along the shoulders and back. The face was broad, with a powerful jaw and a slightly elongated snout. The glowing eyes betrayed a sharp intelligence that made Liam hesitate. For a moment, he considered retreating into the shadows, but something in the creature's gaze, neither hostile nor fearful, held him in place. It was curiosity, not aggression. The wolf, or whatever it was, moved forward slowly, paws barely disturbing the soft earth beneath. Its claws were sheathed, yet the subtle tension in its limbs suggested readiness. The animal tilted its head slightly, ears pricked forward, as if assessing Liam's intentions. His eyes widened in a mixture of awe and trepidation, his mind racing to interpret this silent encounter. Was it a threat? Or could it be an unlikely ally in this wilderness? He took a cautious step back, but the creature did not retreat. Instead, it paused, studying him intently, its glowing eyes flickering with what seemed like a flicker of understanding, an almost human-like recognition. The air grew heavier, the silence stretching between them, thick with unspoken communication. Liam's grip on the branch loosened slightly, feeling the rough bark against his palm. The stillness pressed down again, oppressive and tense. Then, unexpectedly, the wolf lowered its head in a slow, deliberate gesture, an ambiguous sign that could signify cautious acceptance, curiosity, or a tentative truce. Liam's heartbeat intensified, but he held his ground. Carefully, he reached into his pocket, fingers trembling slightly, and withdrew a small piece of dried meat he'd kept for emergencies. With deliberate slowness, he extended his hand, offering the morsel without making any sudden movements, trying to convey his peaceful intentions. The wolf's nose twitched as it sniffed the air, then its glowing eyes shifted to the food. It hesitated, muscles taut, but not aggressive, before stepping closer again. Its nose touched the offering briefly. Then it gently took the meat from Liam's hand, claws grazing his fingers. The contact was fleeting but charged with significance, sending a shiver down Liam's spine. The animal ate steadily, its gaze never leaving him, as if silently evaluating whether he posed a threat or was worth trusting. Liam exhaled slowly, a mixture of relief and uncertainty washing over him. The wolf finished the morsel and sat back on its haunches, its glowing eyes now calm and steady. It remained seated, as if inviting him to stay or signaling a fragile, tentative understanding. Liam's mind spun. Could this creature serve as a guardian, a partner, or was it merely another lost soul wandering these woods? He hesitated, then took a cautious step closer, the grass crunching softly beneath his boots. The wolf remained still, watching intently, patient. Liam's gaze lingered on the animal's form, powerful, graceful, untamed, and an unexpected sense of connection blossomed within him. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of companionship amid the darkness. The tension in his chest eased slightly, replaced by a cautious hope. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, stirring the leaves and causing the wolf's fur to ripple. Its eyes reflected the faint moonlight, unwavering and steady. Liam returned the gaze, feeling the weight of silence settle around them. In that quiet moment, he recognized that he had crossed a threshold. What was once mysterious and frightening was now a potential bridge to understanding. The wolf's presence was a silent promise that perhaps, in this shadowed wilderness, he could find more than just escape. Maybe, just maybe, he could learn to trust and be trusted in turn. The creature shifted slightly, turning its head as if inviting him to follow or stay. Liam drew a deep breath, steadying himself, his pulse slowing enough to muster courage. With a deliberate step forward, he prepared to face whatever came next, aware that the forest transformation had already begun within him, and that this encounter marked only the beginning of a new chapter. Liam paused at the water's edge, his breath forming fleeting clouds in the crisp night air. The moon hung low, casting silvery reflections across the rippling surface of the stream. Shadows flickered among the trees, their movements subtle but deliberate, making him acutely aware of every sound. The rustling leaves, distant owl calls, the faint crack of twigs underfoot. His grip tightened around the small bundle of provisions, bread, dried meat, a handful of berries, each item chosen carefully, yet now feeling fragile in his trembling hands. He hesitated, glancing nervously into the darkness, sensing unseen eyes watching him. The forest was alive with whispers of danger, yet he knew his immediate concern was the creature trailing him, an animal wary of humans, yet desperate for trust. His mind raced through the options. Should he call out, remain silent, or try to lure it closer? His instincts told him that patience and calmness might be his best chance. Slowly, Liam set the food on a flat stone beside the water, kneeling cautiously. His breath fogged in the cold, and he whispered softly, "I don't want to hurt you. I only want to help us both." The words felt heavy, weighted with fear and hope, as he kept his eyes fixed on the shadows ahead. Every muscle tensed, waiting for a sign of acceptance or attack. Suddenly, a faint movement disrupted the stillness, a cautious step, muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. Liam's pulse quickened, but he held his position, watching intently. From the darkness emerged a large, shadowy figure, its form partially illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the branches. It was the wolf, but not the ferocious nightmare beast he'd feared. Instead, it was a creature of cautious curiosity, its eyes glowing softly like lanterns piercing the night. The wolf moved deliberately, muscles rippling beneath a dense coat of fur that shimmered with silvery streaks. It paused at the water's edge, nostrils flaring as it assessed the scent in the air. The animal's gaze met Liam's, steady yet cautious, as if weighing whether this trembling human posed a threat. Liam held his breath, uncertain whether to speak or stay silent. After a tense moment, the wolf lowered its head, inching closer and sniffing the offered food. Its nose brushed the bread briefly, then nudged it aside with a gentle, tentative nudge before taking a cautious bite. Its lips curled back slightly in a silent gesture of acceptance, a sign that it was willing to trust, if only just a little. A wave of relief washed over Liam. His shoulders eased, and he exhaled slowly, sensing a fragile bond forming. Carefully, he extended his hand, palm open, making no sudden movements. The wolf's eyes flicked to him, then back to the food, before stepping forward again, accepting the rest of the offering with a tentative nudge of its snout. For a moment, they shared a silent understanding, an unspoken agreement that, despite the lurking shadows and unseen threats, trust could be forged, however fragile. Liam's fingers brushed the coarse fur along the wolf's neck, feeling the thick, textured coat beneath his fingertips. The animal responded with a soft, almost purring sound, a subtle reassurance. As the wolf ate, Liam's gaze drifted upstream, where the faint glow of moonlight reflected off the water's surface. The surrounding forest seemed to breathe softly, holding its breath in this delicate moment of connection. Yet beneath the calm, a new awareness took root. Danger still lurked nearby, concealed behind the darkness's veil. A sudden snap from the underbrush shattered the quiet. Both Liam and the wolf froze instantly. Liam's eyes widened, instinctively clutching his small stick, his body tensing as if readying for confrontation. The wolf's ears pricked forward, muscles coiling beneath its fur, alert to the new threat. In the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, not hostile, but watchful. Perhaps another animal or a predator lurking unseen. Liam's heart hammered in his chest as he slowly grasped the stick tighter, trying to steady his trembling hands. The eyes lingered for a tense moment before vanishing into the darkness, swallowed by the night. The wolf remained rigid, ears pointed and muscles tense, sensing the same unseen danger. Liam inhaled deeply, forcing himself to relax slightly. His grip on the stick loosened, but he kept it at the ready, prepared to defend himself if necessary. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken warnings and cautious hope. The wolf, sensing Liam's resolve, nudged his hand with its cold nose. Liam hesitated, then gently stroked the animal's fur, whispering, "We're in this together. We'll find a way." His voice was steady now, more confident. The wolf responded with a soft, almost purring sound, leaning into the touch. Its eyes flicked again toward the shadows, then back to Liam, silently promising to stay close. A faint warmth spread through Liam's chest, easing some of the tension as he realized that trust was beginning to take root, fragile but real. Suddenly, a rustling noise came from behind, more deliberate this time. An animal moving through the undergrowth, not threatening, but alert. Liam's instincts kicked in. He tightened his grip on the stick, stepping slightly back, eyes scanning the darkness for the source. The wolf's ears twitched, sensing the change, muscles coiling again. Then, a faint glow appeared, a flicker of movement that revealed a different figure. A lone, wary fox, its coat blending seamlessly with the shadows. It paused, eyeing the scene with cautious curiosity, then slipped away silently, leaving Liam and the wolf in a moment of shared stillness. The threat had passed, but the tension remained, reminding him that safety was fragile and fleeting. Liam looked down at the wolf, a new resolve forming. The encounter had shifted his understanding. Trust was no longer just a hope, but a necessity. He had gained an ally, a creature that, despite its cautious exterior, had responded to his calmness. The night was still thick with dangers, but now he knew he was not alone. He shifted slightly, adjusting his stance, and whispered softly, "We need to move soon. The forest isn't safe tonight." The wolf looked up at him, eyes gleaming with a quiet intelligence, then gave a low, almost purring sound, an acknowledgement, a promise of companionship. As the wind stirred the leaves and the distant cry of a night bird echoed through the trees, Liam felt a flicker of hope. The fragile trust between him and the wolf had begun to grow into something more substantial. The shadows still lurked, but with this new bond, he sensed they might face whatever lay ahead, together. Liam pressed his back against the rough bark of a gnarled tree, rain hammering down so fiercely that each droplet seemed to pierce his skin. The storm's fury had intensified, dark clouds roiling overhead, lightning flashing intermittently to reveal the chaos of the forest around him. His grip on Kai's collar tightened instinctively as the trembling dog pressed against his leg, cold and shivering, seeking warmth and safety. They had sought refuge beneath a sparse canopy of twisted branches, but the relentless downpour rendered even that fragile shelter useless. A thunderclap shattered the air, deafening and sharp, forcing Liam's teeth to clench as he crouched lower, trying to shield Kai from the worst of the elements. The muddy ground beneath him squelched and shifted with every movement, threatening to swallow his boots in a sucking abyss. His soaked clothes clung to his body, numbing him with cold, yet he refused to surrender to despair. His mind raced, desperately searching for a better refuge, any place that could offer protection until the storm passed. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated a faint outline of a fallen log nearby. Liam's gaze locked onto it, hope flickering despite the chaos. With a deep, steadying breath, he pushed himself upright, mud splattering from his knees as he moved cautiously toward the obstacle. Every step was a struggle against the slick, uneven terrain, but driven by necessity, he pressed on, propelled by the instinct to survive. Reaching the log, Liam clambered onto its jagged surface, the rough bark scraping his palms. He paused briefly, senses heightened, ears straining to catch any sound that might signal a lull in the storm. The rain intensified, now a relentless sheet that blurred his vision and soaked through every layer of clothing. Kai barked once, a sharp, uncertain sound swallowed by the thunder's roar, and Liam's gaze fell on the trembling dog, guilt creeping in as he realized how helpless they had become. He pulled Kai closer, feeling the damp fur beneath his fingers, the tremors passing through the small body. "Hold on," he whispered, voice barely audible over the storm's cacophony. "We're not giving up yet." His words were a fragile promise, a vow to himself as much as to Kai. The storm's howling wind suddenly gusted harder, threatening to topple him from his perch. Liam clenched his jaw, refusing to let fear take hold, as the sky rumbled ominously closer. Then, amidst the chaos, Liam's eyes caught sight of a hollow carved into the hillside, a natural crevice shielded by tangled roots and overgrown bushes. It was faint, obscured by rain and shadows, but promising enough to serve as a temporary sanctuary. His heart quickened with renewed purpose. If he could reach it, they might find a moment's reprieve from the storm's wrath. Without hesitation, he slid down from a log, mud squelching between his toes as he hurried toward the hillside, Kai still trembling in his arms. The ascent was perilous. The ground was slick and unstable, every step risking a slip into the muddy abyss below. Liam's muscles strained as he pulled himself upward, driven by the desperate hope that shelter lay just beyond reach. The wind shrieked like a beast, tearing at his clothes and threatening to send him tumbling back down. He grasped at roots and jagged rocks, pulling himself higher, each movement more urgent than the last. Finally, he reached the edge of the hollow. It was a small opening, partially concealed by tangled roots and dense foliage, yet enough to provide a shield from the storm's fury. Liam ducked inside, collapsing onto the damp earth as Kai curled into his lap, trembling violently. For a moment, silence fell, a fragile calm broken only by the relentless drumming of rain on the leaves and the distant, rolling thunder. Liam took a shaky breath, trying to steady himself amid the chaos, feeling the dampness seep into his bones. Outside, the storm raged on, unyielding and brutal. Liam's fingers brushed the cold ground, feeling the chill seep into him, but his mind sharpened with a new resolve. He had fought to find this refuge, to keep Kai alive amid the chaos. He realized that the storm was not just a force of nature, but a test of his resilience, a challenge to his will to survive. In this darkness, amid the howling wind and pouring rain, a faint spark of clarity ignited. He could endure this. He could survive. Suddenly, the wind shifted, softening slightly, signaling a possible break in the storm's violence. Liam's gaze darted to the narrow opening, eyes searching for signs of relief. The rain lessened momentarily, and distant thunder rumbled away, giving a glimpse of calm. For the first time in hours, hope flickered within him. They might not be safe yet, but they had gained a crucial moment, an opportunity to rest, to gather strength. He tightened his hold on Kai, feeling the dog's trembling lessen just a little. His heartbeat still pounded in his chest, but now it carried a new purpose. No matter how fierce the storm, he would not surrender. He would protect Kai and himself, fighting against the chaos until they found a way out. The cold rain continued to fall, relentless and unforgiving. Yet inside this hollow, shielded from the storm's fury, Liam sensed the awakening of a deeper resilience, a quiet understanding that even in the most tumultuous moments, hope could be kindled anew. As the wind howled louder once more, Liam's eyes fixed on the faint outline of the hollow's entrance. The storm's intensity seemed to ebb, the thunder rolling away into distant rumbles. A fragile calm settled over them, a promise that the worst might be passing. Liam's grip on Kai tightened slightly, feeling the trembling ease in the dog's body. His own body ached from exhaustion, but a spark of clarity and determination burned brighter. They had survived the storm's worst. This was only a beginning. Now, with shelter secured and hope rekindled, Liam understood that their journey was far from over. The storm had tested them, but it also revealed their strength, their capacity to endure and to find light even in the darkest night. Liam awoke as the first light of dawn seeped through the gaps in his rough shelter. The air was cool and damp, clinging to his skin and clothes, making him shiver despite the lingering warmth of early morning. The forest around him lay silent, the chaotic symphony of night replaced by a gentle, persistent hush. He sat up carefully, muscles protesting from sleeping on uneven ground, and drew a deep breath, filling his lungs with the crisp, earthy scent. The pale sunlight brushed the treetops, casting elongated shadows that swayed with the breeze. Liam reached out, fingers tracing the jagged bark of a fallen branch he had used as a pillow. The ache in his joints served as a reminder of how far he had traveled from the safety of home. Yet oddly, this solitude offered a strange comfort. The forest had become more than just a refuge. It was transforming into a place where he could breathe freely, where the weight of his worries temporarily lifted. He scanned his surroundings, his gaze settling on the small pile of belongings he had gathered, a tattered cloth, some leftover food, and the small, worn knife he'd found near the stream. Each item seemed insignificant against the vastness stretching before him, yet each held a quiet significance. They were tokens of his resilience, fragments of control in a world that often felt unpredictable and hostile. The faint glow of sunlight illuminated patches of moss and fallen leaves, awakening his senses. He remembered moments spent observing the forest's awakening, birds starting their songs, insects stirring, the subtle hum of life pulsing through the trees. For a fleeting instant, he allowed himself to hope that perhaps this place could be more than just a temporary shelter. Maybe, just maybe, it could be a sanctuary where he could pause, reflect, and find a sense of belonging beyond the confines of his previous life. His thoughts drifted to the bond he had begun to forge with the wolf, a quiet trust that had grown through cautious encounters. The creature's glowing eyes, its tentative approach, the subtle exchange of food, all of it was etched into his memory with vivid clarity. It was strange how something so wild and free could become a source of comfort, a reminder that he was not entirely alone in this vast, indifferent forest. His hand instinctively reached out, fingers brushing the rough bark of a nearby tree, grounding him. The solid presence of the trunk offered a sense of stability amid his swirling doubts. Was he truly safe here? Could he remain, or was he destined to leave and face the unknown once more? These questions pressed heavily, but he pushed them aside, focusing instead on the fragile hope blossoming within him. Suddenly, a rustling sound snapped his attention. His body tensed, muscles tightening as he scanned the shadows. A squirrel darted among the branches, its quick movements stirring a flicker of alertness. His heartbeat quickened briefly, then slowed as he watched the creature vanish into the foliage. The forest was alive and unpredictable, yet strangely reassuring in its chaos. He rose slowly, stretching stiff limbs. Dirt brushed from his knees as he surveyed the clearing, contemplating his next move. The thought of leaving this peaceful pocket was daunting, but he knew it was inevitable. Staying longer risked becoming too dependent on the forest's unpredictable mercy. Still, the idea of parting from his small sanctuary stirred a mixture of hope and apprehension, as if he was standing at a crossroads. He moved toward the shelter, gathering his few belongings. His fingers hesitated over the torn cloth, a faint smile flickering as he remembered how it had kept him warm and dry. That ragged piece of fabric symbolized his survival, a testament to his resilience. Carefully, he folded it, tucking it into his pocket along with the other items, each one now carrying more weight than before. As he prepared to depart, his gaze lingered on the spot where he had first encountered the wolf. The memory was vivid, the creature's cautious stare, the silent understanding that had passed between them. A bond had quietly formed here, unspoken but unbreakable. Liam felt a warmth rise within, a sense of gratitude for the companionship that had unexpectedly blossomed. He took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp morning air, and stepped forward. The forest stretched endlessly ahead, a tapestry of green, shadow, and sunlight. He understood that the outside world held unknown dangers and challenges, but for now, he embraced this moment of clarity. The forest had shown him its secrets, its wild beauty, and in return, he had begun to find a fragile sense of belonging. A faint sound reached his ears, a soft crackle like shifting twigs. His eyes snapped toward the source, alert once more. But it was only a bird hopping among the branches, seemingly unconcerned. Liam relaxed slightly, a subtle smile touching his lips as he recognized the forest's quiet persistence. Life persisted here, indifferent yet somehow inviting. He paused at the edge of his shelter, glancing back one last time. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the clearing, warming his face. For a moment, he felt a flicker of hope, not reckless optimism, but a steady conviction that he could face what lay ahead. He was no longer merely fleeing his problems. He was beginning to understand that this place, with all its dangers and mysteries, could be part of his journey. Turning away, Liam hesitated only briefly before taking a tentative step forward. His heart felt lighter, yet still heavy with the weight of uncertainty. The forest had revealed its secrets, its unyielding beauty, and in doing so, had changed him. He had gained a new awareness that survival was not just about avoiding threats, but about embracing the unknown with cautious curiosity. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves, whispering promises of uncharted paths. Liam's footsteps pressed softly into the earth, each step a quiet declaration that he was ready, not to escape, but to confront whatever the world had in store. Deep inside, a small voice urged him onward, guiding him toward acceptance, growth, and the realization that this forest, and perhaps himself, could become more than just a refuge. They could be his home. Liam's eyes darted through the tangled undergrowth, every flicker of movement sharpening his senses. The forest around him was cloaked in an unsettling silence, broken only by the faint murmur of voices carried on the breeze, sounds that seemed to echo from a nightmare rather than reality. His chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid breaths, each inhalation trembling as if the very air might betray him. Shadows stretched like dark tendrils, twisting and merging with the foliage, obscuring the source of the voices and making it impossible to determine how close the danger truly was. He pressed his back against a gnarled tree trunk, clutching a crumpled piece of cloth in trembling fingers. His mind raced, trying to weigh his options. The approaching footsteps grew louder, more deliberate, each step a drumbeat of imminent threat. The voices, low and clipped, carried hints of urgency and authority. He strained to catch fragments. "Did you hear that? Someone's nearby." One whispered, cautious and tense. "Probably just an animal," came the dismissive reply, but Liam sensed the lie. The tone betrayed a purpose, a focus that sent a shiver down his spine. Peeking cautiously around the thick bark, he saw movement behind a dense thicket, shadowy figures concealed behind the greenery. Their presence was undeniable. The flickering shadows of their bodies betrayed their proximity. The hunters were closing in, their intentions clear. Every instinct urged him to remain hidden, to wait for the right moment to slip away. But the forest stretched endlessly in every direction, a labyrinth with no obvious exit. His mind clung to the fragile hope that he could avoid confrontation altogether. A sudden snap of a twig beneath his foot shattered the fragile calm. Liam froze instantly, heart pounding so loudly he feared it would give him away. His muscles tensed, every nerve alight with alertness. The voices paused, then resumed, louder and more insistent, closer now. He pressed his palms against the rough bark, muscles taut, eyes darting toward the faint trail leading deeper into the woods. Was an escape route or a trap? His grip tightened on the fabric, knuckles widening. A shift in the wind carried a faint, earthy scent, smoke, damp soil, and something metallic. Liam inhaled sharply, grounding himself momentarily in the familiar aroma amid the chaos. He knew he couldn't stay hidden forever. The primal urge to flee grew stronger, yet every instinct told him to wait, to observe, to understand the threat before risking a move. His fingers curled around the cloth, trembling with anticipation and fear. Suddenly, a low rustling to his right made him whip his head around. A branch snapped loudly, echoing through the silence. His eyes widened as a figure emerged from the shadows, taller than expected, clad in dark clothing, a rifle slung over their shoulder. The figure paused, scanning the surroundings with a sharp, assessing gaze. Liam's breath hitched, heart hammering in his chest as the figure's eyes settled on the area. Every muscle in his body tensed, ready to react. The voices of the hunters grew more animated, their words sharper. "He's close. We need to find him before sunset," one commanded, voice edged with urgency. The other grunted in acknowledgement. Liam's mind spun. Should he stay put or attempt to slip away? Revealing himself could mean immediate danger, but silence felt like surrender. His thoughts flickered to Kai, his silent, trusting friend who had become more than just a companion in this wilderness. The thought of losing him sharpened Liam's resolve, igniting a flicker of defiance. He remembered the small knife tucked into his pocket, a relic from the stream where he had last refilled his water. Carefully, he loosened his grip on the cloth, preparing to move if necessary. His eyes flicked again to the approaching figure, calculating the perfect moment to disappear into the shadows. The forest seemed to hold its breath, awaiting his decision. A faint gust of wind shifted the canopy, carrying a subtle hint of smoke and damp earth. Liam inhaled deeply, grounding himself with the familiar scent. He knew he couldn't stay hidden forever, but every instinct urged patience. He watched the figure with cautious intent, weighing the risks of action. The figure's silhouette was distinct now, dark, purposeful, moving with confidence. Liam's fingers curled tighter around the fabric, ready to act. Then a distant, muffled shout pierced the air. There! Movement! The voice was sharp, commanding. Liam's pulse surged. This was his moment. He drew a shallow breath, steeled himself, and moved silently along the thick trunk, keeping low. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated. He avoided the dry leaves and twigs crunching beneath the approaching figures, aiming to slip past unnoticed. As he advanced deeper into the woods, the sounds of pursuit faded into a heavy, oppressive quiet. Liam's chest heaved, each breath shallow and quick, every sense heightened. He kept close to the shadows, eyes fixed on the faint outlines of the forest, searching for any sign of Kai or a safe passage out. The threat was still out there, lurking in the darkness, but he refused to freeze. He had to reach Kai, warn him, and find a way to turn the tide. He ducked behind a fallen log, listening intently. The voices had diminished, swallowed by the thick canopy. Yet Liam knew better than to trust the silence. Danger could still be lurking, hidden in the shadows or disguised as silence itself. His gaze caught a flicker of movement, a dark silhouette slipping through the trees. Relief washed over him as he recognized the shape of the wolf, cautious but nearby. Its presence was a fragile lifeline amid the chaos. He took a cautious step forward, voice barely above a whisper. Kai, he called softly, eyes locked on the shadow. The wolf paused, then approached, head lowered in a gesture of trust. Liam reached out, fingers trembling, and gently stroked the fur that had become his closest ally. For now, the immediate threat was held at bay, but he knew the danger wasn't gone. The hunters remained out there, and the forest still held its secrets. Yet, with the wolf at his side, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had gained new knowledge. The armed figure was not just a threat, but possibly an ally in disguise, and the wolf's presence suggested that help might come from unexpected sources. His understanding of the situation had deepened. He wasn't just a helpless observer, but an active participant in this deadly game. He looked once more into the shadows beyond, realizing that his perspective had shifted. No longer was he merely hiding and waiting. Now, he was planning, calculating his next move. The forest's oppressive silence pressed down, but within it, a flicker of hope ignited. He had bought himself time to decide whether to risk everything to reach Kai or to stay hidden and hope the hunters moved on. The faint rustling of leaves behind him signaled a new possibility. Liam tensed, ready to bolt, but then recognized the faint paw prints, fresh and cautious, approaching from the shadows. The wolf was still close. Liam's gaze searched the dim light, seeing the dark figure of the wolf moving silently through the trees, alert but near. Relief flooded him, mingling with a sense of resolve. He took a step forward, voice low and steady. Kai, he whispered again, eyes fixed on the approaching silhouette. The wolf paused, then nudged him gently, trusting. Liam reached out, fingers brushing the soft fur, feeling the warmth of hope amid the danger. He knew the threat was still out there, lurking just beyond sight, but for the moment, he had gained a crucial advantage. He looked once more into the darkness, knowing that whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. The forest shadows concealed both peril and opportunity, and Liam's heart beat with a cautious optimism, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Liam pressed himself flat against the thick trunk, his breath shallow and rapid as he listened intently. The late afternoon sun filtered weakly through the canopy, casting shifting shadows that flickered across the forest floor. His palms were sweaty, clutching a small stone, his muscles tense from anticipation. Every sound seemed magnified. The faint rustle of leaves, the distant chirping of birds, the soft crack of twigs underfoot beyond his line of sight. His eyes darted toward the faint movement ahead, where a figure moved cautiously through the underbrush. He recognized the silhouette immediately. Ethan, the ranger, moving with deliberate stealth. Liam's stomach clenched, a surge of conflicting emotions tightening his chest. This was the moment he had prepared for, yet doubt gnawed at him. Was it too late? Would Ethan believe him? Could he risk everything on a single chance? The ranger's footsteps grew louder, more purposeful, each step muffled by the leaf-littered ground. Liam pressed his back against the bark, clutching the stone tighter as his heart pounded erratically. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Ethan paused behind a fallen log, scanning the area with cautious intensity. His tall frame was clad in dark gear, a rifle slung over his shoulder, his face partly hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Liam could see the tension in his stance, alert, wary. The ranger's gaze swept past Liam's hiding spot, searching for signs of movement or threat. A sudden snap of a twig nearby made Ethan stiffen. He froze, muscles taut, then lowered into a crouch, slipping behind cover. Liam's breath hitched. Was this the moment? Should he step out now? No. Patience. He shifted slightly, trying to get a clearer view. Ethan moved in the opposite direction, heading toward a thick thicket that looked promising for concealment. Liam hesitated, weighing his options. The decision was agonizing. Should he call out, try to warn him, or stay silent and hope for the best? The tension thickened. Ethan's boots made almost no sound as he advanced, eyes sharp and scanning every detail. Liam's fingers curled around the stone, knuckles whitening. The forest pressed in from all sides, the quiet broken only by distant bird calls and the rustling leaves stirred by the breeze. Suddenly, a faint movement caught Liam's eye, Ethan's hand reaching into his pocket. A radio? Was he trying to communicate with someone? Liam's pulse quickened. If he made a sound now, it could betray him. But what if Ethan was already aware of the threat? Ignoring it might cost lives. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, then another. Every muscle felt frozen, his mind racing through possible outcomes. What if Ethan dismissed him? What if this was a mistake? Yet, beneath the hesitation, a spark of resolve ignited. A low growl suddenly echoed from behind him. Liam spun around instinctively, eyes wide. The sound was deep, guttural, a warning or perhaps the voice of the forest itself. His gaze darted back to Ethan, who froze and turned toward the noise. The ranger's hand hovered near his radio, hesitant but alert. The growl wasn't coming from Ethan's direction, but from the underbrush closer to Liam. His heart hammered even louder, each thump echoing in his ears. His mind scrambled for a plan. Should he shout, scare whatever was there, or stay silent and hope it was nothing? Ethan moved cautiously, rifle raised slightly, voice low. "Who's there? Show yourself." The words cut through the stillness like a blade, but Liam hesitated. The tone was commanding, yet not aggressive. It carried authority that might persuade Ethan to listen. Liam inhaled slowly, summoning every ounce of courage. He pushed himself away from the tree and stepped into the open, hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm. The forest seemed to hold its breath again as Ethan's eyes locked onto him. "Ethan," Liam called out, voice trembling but steady. "It's me, Liam. I saw something. Someone's been here. They're still nearby." Ethan's gaze narrowed, studying him carefully. The tension stretched tight between them. For a moment, the ranger said nothing, simply lowering his weapon slightly. His expression was unreadable, part surprise, part suspicion. "You're far from where you should be," Ethan finally said, voice cautious. "What are you doing out here? Why didn't you return with the others?" Liam hesitated, then clenched his fists, fighting the tremor in his voice. "I saw him, the hunter. He's been tracking animals, and I think he's dangerous. I couldn't wait. I had to warn someone." Ethan's eyes flickered briefly, a hint of recognition, but his stance remained guarded. "A hunter? Are you certain? Where exactly?" Liam pointed toward the thicket. "Over there. I heard gunshots. He's close. I saw fresh footprints. I was trying to find you before he moves again." The ranger's jaw tightened. He studied Liam for a long moment, then slowly lowered his rifle entirely. "All right, let me there," Ethan said, voice steady now. "But if this turns out to be a mistake, you'll answer for it." Relief flooded Liam. He nodded quickly, gesturing toward the indicated direction. His eyes searched Ethan's face for signs of trust. Ethan moved forward cautiously, senses heightened. As they threaded through the undergrowth, Liam's mind churned with a mixture of anxiety and cautious hope. For the first time, he had taken a decisive step, no longer hiding, no longer waiting passively. Now, he was actively seeking to confront the danger, with Ethan at his side. The forest seemed to listen, silent and watchful. A faint breeze stirred the leaves, whispering promises of change. Somewhere behind them, unseen but felt, the woods held their breath. Liam knew this was a turning point, not just in their immediate pursuit, but in his understanding of himself and his role in this unfolding threat. The landscape, the alliance, the knowledge, all shifted subtly, setting the stage for what was to come. Liam pressed himself flat against the rough bark, his breath shallow and ragged as the distant voices echoed closer through the forest. Shadows flickered across the uneven ground, cast by the intermittent glow of flashlights slicing through the canopy. His pulse hammered in his ears, each thud amplifying the tension that gripped him. Every muscle tensed, ready to spring into motion or remain perfectly still. He clutched a small stone in his pocket, a fragile hope that it might serve as a tool if needed, though he wasn't sure how. The sharp, commanding voices of the hunters pierced the night, punctuated by the crackle of leaves under hurried footsteps. Their words were muffled but edged with urgency, fueling Liam's anxiety. He cautiously peered around the trunk, eyes darting between the approaching figures and the darkness ahead. His mind raced. Should he stay hidden or attempt to slip away unnoticed? The decision weighed heavily, each second feeling stretched into eternity. Suddenly, a rustle nearby froze him in place. His body stiffened, muscles taut with fear. His eyes darted toward the sound, catching a fleeting glimpse of a figure moving behind a dense thicket, most likely one of the hunters, scanning with intent. The beams of light flickered over patches of moss and fallen branches, illuminating the forest floor but revealing nothing definitive. Liam's mind spun, weighing the risks of remaining still versus risking a move to escape detection. The silence stretched thickly, broken only by the faint scrape of boots on dirt. The hunters paused, their flashlights sweeping the undergrowth with renewed caution. Liam's grip tightened on the stone, fingers trembling slightly as he prepared for the worst. He pressed himself deeper into the shadows, holding his breath, knowing that even the slightest movement could betray him. A sudden gust of wind stirred the leaves, carrying a faint whisper of sound. The hunters responded with a tense pause, listening intently. Liam seized this moment, slowly drawing his hand from his pocket to clutch a small branch he'd found earlier, a makeshift weapon or distraction if necessary. His senses sharpened, the rustling leaves, the scent of damp earth, the faint tremor beneath his feet. Every detail was vital. Each could be his salvation or his downfall. In a corner of his eye, he saw a shadow flicker, an indication that one of the hunters had caught a glimpse of movement. Their voices grew more strained, more commanding. Over there, I saw something shift. One barked, flashing his light toward the darkness. Liam's stomach clenched. His instinct was to bolt, but experience told him that running would only draw more attention. Instead, he pressed his back against the tree, steadying his breathing as the beam of light lingered, probing the shadows. The glow passed over him, revealing only a brief flicker of movement, perhaps a squirrel or a trick of the moonlight. The hunters cursed softly, frustration evident. "Nothing's there. Keep searching," another ordered, voice tight but controlled. Relief washed over Liam, but he knew better than to relax completely. The danger had not passed. They had seen or sensed something, and their suspicion remained. He remained motionless, ears straining for any new sound, eyes flicking between the faint moonlight obscured by drifting clouds and the dark silhouettes of trees. Then, unexpectedly, a voice cut through the tense silence, calm, authoritative, and unmistakably familiar. "Hey, over here. I found something." Liam's heart jolted. The voice was Ethan's, firm, steady, cutting through the chaos with confidence. The hunters responded immediately, their movements becoming more hurried, voices rising in confusion and suspicion. "Where? Show us," one demanded, voice edged with curiosity. Liam's stomach twisted. Ethan was nearby, closer than he'd guessed. Could this be an opportunity? Should he risk revealing himself? Every instinct urged silence, to trust Ethan's judgment and avoid exposing his position further. A flicker of hope ignited within him. Ethan's presence could be the turning point. Liam hesitated only a moment before shifting slightly, cautiously peering around the trunk. His heart pounded louder, echoing his racing thoughts. The flashlights converged on a narrow path ahead, and Ethan emerged from the shadows, holding a lantern. His face was calm, eyes sharp and observant. The hunters followed, their beams darting across the trees as they moved toward Ethan's position. Liam's breath hitched. Ethan's arrival marked a shift, an opening for him to reconsider his situation. The immediate threat was still present, but now he saw a possible way out. Ethan's calm demeanor suggested control and perhaps a plan. Ethan's voice broke the tense quiet, clear and commanding. "Stand down, everyone. I don't see any signs of trouble here." The hunters hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Their flashlights flickered over the dense woods, casting long shadows. One of them grumbled, reluctant but obedient. "Fine, but we'll be watching," he muttered, eyes narrowing. The group dispersed slowly, their footsteps fading into the night. Liam remained pressed against the tree, clutching the branch tightly, watching Ethan approach cautiously. Their eyes met briefly, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Ethan knelt beside Liam, voice low but steady. "You did well staying quiet. They might have missed you if you'd made a move." Liam nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and newfound confidence. For the first time in hours, he recognized that patience and silence could be his allies. The danger was still real, but Ethan's intervention had shifted the balance, offering him a chance to survive, to think, to plan. Ethan gestured for Liam to stay low and follow. Liam took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill his lungs. The forest around him was still shrouded in mystery and threat, but now he understood that sometimes restraint and careful observation could turn the tide. The immediate danger had been temporarily averted, and a fragile hope took root, one that whispered he might find a way out, that he could trust himself to navigate the shadows ahead. As Ethan led him deeper into the woods, Liam realized that his knowledge had expanded. He knew now that allies could appear unexpectedly, and that even in the darkest moments, patience and resolve could forge a path forward. The forest remained unpredictable, but he was no longer entirely alone. The threat was not eradicated, but his understanding of how to face it had grown, an essential step toward survival. Liam's eyes remained fixed on the silhouette that had just melted into the shadows of the trees. The last rays of dusk painted streaks of amber across the forest floor, yet his gaze was drawn beyond the fading light, into the depths where Kai had vanished. A heavy silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken words and the weight of inevitable parting. The breeze was almost imperceptible, stirring dry leaves and carrying faint whispers that only the ancient trees remembered. His chest tightened, a subtle ache that pressed inward, as if the forest itself urged him to stay, to cling to what was slipping away. But Kai's figure had disappeared entirely, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Liam's fingers curled into fists, then loosened, recognizing that this moment demanded acceptance. Sometimes, bonds dissolve not with a clash or tearful cry, but with a quiet understanding that some paths diverge, no matter how tightly they are held. A gentle gust brushed against his cheek, carrying the scent of damp earth and the lingering warmth of sunlight. He hesitated briefly, then took a measured step forward, each movement slow and deliberate. Memories flickered, Kai's curious eyes, the way he had nudged Liam to trust the silent strength of the forest, the rare moments of peace amid chaos. Now, only the hum of evening insects and the distant call of an owl punctuated the stillness. Liam's gaze lingered on the empty space where Kai had vanished, the emptiness stark and undeniable. His heart clenched, yet an unfamiliar calm began to seep through the ache, softening the edges of loss. He had traversed countless miles, faced fears he once believed insurmountable, and learned that the forest had become more than refuge. It was a mirror of his transformation. He moved toward a small clearing, where the last light illuminated a cracked, moss-covered stone that served as a marker or altar. Kneeling briefly, Liam brushed his fingers over its rough surface, feeling the coolness beneath. He whispered a farewell, not aloud, but into the silence enveloping him. The words felt heavy but strangely freeing, as if releasing a burden he had carried too long. A faint rustle nearby caught his attention, not from fear, but as a gentle reminder that life persisted beyond loss. The forest pulsed with quiet resilience, echoing the changes within him. His shoulders relaxed, and a faint, knowing smile touched his lips. He understood now that parting was not the end, but a doorway, an opening to new beginnings shaped by acceptance. As the last sunlight dipped below the horizon, shadows lengthened, stretching like unseen fingers across the woods. Liam slowly rose, dusting off his knees, and scanned the darkening trees for any sign of Kai. Only silence and watchful branches greeted him. He inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with cool, fragrant air. The ache inside still lingered, but it was softer now, tempered by the understanding that the memories they shared could nourish him in the days ahead. He reflected on his journey, how he had faced the fear of losing, the pain of letting go, and discovered a new strength. The forest had become a crucible, forging resilience and hope within him. It was no longer just a sanctuary, but a mirror of his inner evolution. Turning from the clearing, Liam stepped forward, each movement more confident than the last. The woods responded with a gentle hum, their shadows no longer threatening but familiar. The experience had carved a new space inside him, one of quiet resolve and newfound clarity. As he delved deeper into the forest, the twilight faded into a tapestry of stars emerging overhead. The vast night sky stretched infinitely, indifferent yet somehow reassuring. Liam felt a thread of connection, an unspoken promise that Kai's memory, the lessons learned, and the courage gained would remain with him, guiding his steps through uncertain paths. He paused, eyes lifted to the constellations, feeling the weight of his journey settle into his bones. The forest was no longer merely a refuge. It was a forge shaping his resolve. The world beyond might remain unpredictable, but within, he carried a steady certainty. He was no longer the boy seeking escape, but someone capable of enduring, transforming pain into strength, and facing whatever lay ahead with open eyes. A breeze stirred his hair as he stepped into the darkness, not as a sign of fear, but as an invitation. The path before him was unwritten, yet he no longer felt the need to flee from it. Instead, he embraced the silent hope that Kai's memory and the forest's lessons would sustain him wherever he might go next. The woods whispered around him, a lullaby of resilience, as Liam moved forward into the night, ready to meet his future with quiet resolve. Liam hesitated on the porch, his hand gripping the cold metal handle of the door. The familiar creak as he pushed it open seemed louder than usual, echoing in the quiet house. The air inside was thick with stillness, the kind that presses down on the bones. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the muffled voices from the television drifted through the silence, anchoring him to a world he had momentarily escaped from. His eyes darted across the dim hallway, searching for signs of change, but everything looked the same, yet somehow different, as if the house had aged overnight. He stepped inside slowly, each movement cautious, as if the fragile piece might shatter at any moment. The scent of baked bread mingled with the faint perfume lingering from his mother's room, but the warmth was absent. The house felt like a vessel holding memories, some comforting, others oppressive. Liam paused in the living room, observing shadows flicker across the walls, cast by the flickering lamp. His gaze lingered on the dusty picture frames, faces frozen in time, their expressions unreadable. He wondered if she saw him, if she noticed the boy who returned changed, more guarded, more distant. From upstairs, he caught a faint sound, her voice, soft and muted, speaking on the phone. The words floated down, unintelligible but weighted with distraction. Her tone was strained, layered with fatigue. It was as if she had become a stranger, her familiar voice carrying unspoken worries. Liam's stomach clenched. The distance between them felt like an invisible wall. He looked at the photographs again, feeling the weight of neglect and time. Did she recognize the boy who had ventured into the woods, who had learned to listen to the wind and trust the silence? Or had he become just another shadow in her eyes? He moved toward the sofa, his fingertips brushing the fabric, which was cool and slightly rough. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy, filled with questions he didn't know how to voice. What should he feel? Relief that he was alive? Guilt for leaving everything behind? Or something stranger, an odd flicker of hope that maybe things could change? His mind spun with conflicting thoughts, each vying for dominance. His gaze drifted to the window. Outside, the night stretched vast and dark, stars faintly visible through the thin curtains. The world beyond seemed untouched, serene and distant. Yet inside, a storm brewed. Memories of the forest, the trust he had learned, the quiet resilience persisted in his mind, whispering softly. Could these lessons find a place in this house? Could he carry that calm into this unfamiliar space, where tension and unspoken fears lingered like shadows? He shifted on the sofa, rubbing his palms together, trying to summon words that refused to come. How could he explain to her that he had learned to read the wind, to interpret signs from nature, when all she saw was a boy who ran away? How could he convey the bond he shared with the creature that had watched him with glowing eyes, without sounding crazy? The questions tangled in his mind, elusive as threads slipping through his fingers. A sudden chime from the clock startled him. The sharp sound marked the passing of time, a reminder that life outside the forest persisted, indifferent to his internal struggles. Liam looked down, noticing the dirt under his nails, the ache in his muscles from hours of wandering. It was strange, this physical exhaustion after nights filled with fear and wonder. He had survived the storm, both outside and within. Her voice called again, softer now, summoning him from the kitchen. "Liam, dinner's ready. Come eat." Her tone lacked its usual warmth, layered with fatigue and distraction. He hesitated, torn between the comfort of routine and the desire to retreat further into his thoughts. Slowly, he pushed himself up, each movement deliberate, testing whether the house would accept his return. The act felt like crossing a boundary, an unspoken acknowledgement of his presence. He entered the dining area and saw her sitting at the table, head bowed over a newspaper. She looked up as he approached, her eyes flickering with a mixture of surprise and something softer, perhaps concern. She offered a faint, almost absent smile. Liam nodded silently and took his place across from her. The meal was simple, steamed vegetables, rice, grilled chicken, but in that quiet space, it felt grounding. As they ate, she occasionally glanced his way, searching for something unspoken. He stared at his plate, the flavors dull, compared to the vivid sensations of the forest. Still, he made an effort to focus, to stay present. His thoughts drifted to the wolf, the creature that had watched him with knowing eyes, sharing silence and understanding. Could that bond translate here? Could he find a way to carry the calm patience of the woods into this tense household? The forest had taught him to listen, really listen to the world around him. Maybe that was the lesson he needed now. Not words or explanations, but quiet patience and observance. As he finished his meal, Liam pushed his plate aside, a strange sense of resolve settling over him. The house was a different kind of wilderness, full of hidden dangers and unspoken fears, but he realized that the qualities that helped him survive in the woods could also help him here. Courage wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was a whisper, a steady heartbeat beneath the surface. He looked up at his mother, who was now quietly folding the napkin beside her plate. Their eyes met briefly, and he saw a flicker of recognition, perhaps of something changed within him, or maybe of her own unspoken worries. Without a word, Liam rose from the table, feeling the weight of the day lift slightly, replaced by a fragile hope. He sensed that this moment marked a subtle shift, an opening for understanding, a step toward rebuilding what had been fractured. Walking toward the staircase, he hesitated again at the foot, glancing back into the living room. For a moment, he imagined the forest, the dark, silent sanctuary that had become part of him, and wondered if the lessons learned there could help him navigate this fragile, uncertain home. Could he find balance? Could he carry the quiet strength into this familiar yet unfamiliar world? He ascended the stairs slowly, each step echoing softly in the quiet house. Entering his room, he found comfort in the familiar surroundings, but now they felt less like a cage and more like a refuge. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he looked once more out the window into the night, which still held its secrets. Outside, the wind stirred the trees, whispering softly, as if sharing a secret only he could hear. Liam closed his eyes briefly, listening to the gentle rustling. Inside, a new feeling stirred, a quiet understanding that perhaps, in the moments of return and reflection, he could begin to piece himself together. The lessons of the forest, the patience, the resilience, the trust weren't gone. They had become part of him, waiting to be woven into the fabric of his everyday life. A faint, tentative smile touched his lips as he lay back on the mattress. The journey wasn't over, but he had taken the first step towards seeing his world through different eyes. The house, once a symbol of confinement, now seemed to hold the potential for change, if only he could listen closely enough. And perhaps, in the quiet strength of patience and hope, he could find his way forward. Liam's eyes fluttered open to the soft glow of dawn filtering through the thin curtains. The air was cool and invigorating, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Silence enveloped the room, thick and almost reverent, as if the house itself was exhaling after the chaos of yesterday. Outside, the forest stretched undisturbed, still, welcoming, full of quiet promise. He moved slowly, feeling the mattress mold to his weight. For a moment, he simply gazed at the sunlight spilling across the wooden floor, a strange warmth spreading through his chest. It was as if the forest, the storms, the fears, all of it had led him here, to this moment of clarity. His fingers brushed the leather cover of his journal on the bedside table, familiar and worn. The pages were blank, awaiting his thoughts. He hesitated briefly, then opened the cover, the pen already in his hand, eager to capture the swirling ideas in his mind. The ink flowed smoothly as he began to write, each word a step toward understanding himself better. Today feels different. The thought emerged naturally, as if it had been waiting. The forest, the wolf, everything I feared, everything I loved, has reshaped me. His handwriting grew steady, deliberate. I faced darkness and discovered a part of myself I didn't know existed. I am not the same boy who ran into the woods, desperate to escape. I am stronger now, even if I don't always feel it. He paused, glancing out the window again. Outside, sunlight danced on the leaves, casting flickering shadows on the ground. The house was silent except for the distant hum of waking life. Birds calling, a breeze stirring the branches. A calm settled over him, but beneath it, a quiet anticipation lingered. He knew that beyond this moment, new challenges awaited. Yet for now he was present, ready. His thoughts drifted to the wolf. Their bond had been fragile at first, built on cautious glances and moments of shared silence. Now, those memories anchored him, reminders that trust could grow in the unlikeliest places. The creature's glowing eyes, the way it had looked at him with curiosity rather than hostility, haunted and comforted him simultaneously. Liam set the journal aside and swung his legs over the edge of the bed. His bare feet touched the cool wooden floor, grounding him. He stretched slowly, feeling the stiffness of sleep give way to alertness. Today, he told himself, marks the start of something new. Not necessarily easy, but genuine. He approached the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see the forest beyond. It stretched endlessly, alive and whispering with secrets. For the first time in a long while, a flicker of hope ignited in his chest, an unshakable belief that he could face whatever lay ahead. Turning away from the window, he moved to his small desk, where his backpack sat half-packed from the previous day. Inside, he knew, were remnants of his journey, a few dried berries, a scrap of cloth, a small stone he'd found near the stream. He took out a worn photograph of his family, eyes lingering on it for a moment. A tightness clenched his throat, but he pushed it aside. No more dwelling on what was lost. Today was about what could be gained. He pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began sketching a rough map of the forest he'd navigated. Lines and symbols marked safe spots, streams, and the places where he'd seen the wolf. It was a visual reminder that even amid chaos, he had found patterns, signs of order within the wild. Suddenly, the door to his room creaked open softly. His mother's voice drifted in, gentle but distracted. "Liam? Breakfast's ready. You sleeping in today?" He hesitated, then called back, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." His voice sounded steadier than he felt. A small victory. He checked the clock. It was still early, but the day beckoned with promise. He inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with the crisp morning air. For the first time in days, he felt a genuine readiness to face what was next. He returned to his journal and jotted down a final note. Asterisk whatever comes, I will meet it with quiet strength. I'm not alone anymore. The forest, the wolf, and I, together, are enough. Asterisk. Closing the notebook, Liam stood and looked around his room one last time. The walls, once cluttered with posters and trinkets, now seemed to echo a sense of calm, a silent acknowledgement of his inner transformation. The house remained still, but Liam sensed a shift within himself, a readiness to step into the unknown with resilience and hope. He moved toward the door, pausing briefly to take one last look outside. The sunlight had grown warmer, brighter. The woods outside called to him, whispering of adventures yet to come. He pushed open the door and stepped into the corridor with a newfound confidence. Downstairs, the aroma of breakfast lingered, but Liam understood that his true nourishment came from within. His courage, memories, and a quiet conviction that whatever challenges awaited, he could face them. With each step, he carried a sense of peace, a spark of optimism ignited by the realization that his journey was far from over. It had only just begun.